Bear down, Chicago Bears. The Bears, are they leaving Chicago? Could the Chicago Bears really leave the city of Chicago? And the answer to that is yes. It's starting to look like there is a possibility that the Chicago Bears are going to make the big move into the suburbs where they're going to be more well supported. Ironically, despite that the Chicago Bears have been a staple of the downtown region for year after year after year, it looks like going forward, you might be gassing up the car and heading to Arlington Heights because, as you know, the Bears bought some property in Arlington Heights, uh, and they've been working on taxes for it. They've been doing quite a bit to try to see if that could be an area, a place in which they could make a move because they don't feel like they're getting the support with the city. Now, it's not the city itself that's not giving them support, it's the financing needed. Now, there are problems with Soldier Field. You can say what you want, but Soldier Field was built in 1924 and it lacks the amenities of any modern stadium, seats 64,000 people, whereas just by comparison, Lambeau Field, over 81,000 people. Soldier Field is an open air, and there are some brutal Chicago winters that you have to contend with. And, if you're a player in the NFL and you have a choice of playing in warm climates or playing in frozen disasters, you really don't want to play in these frozen disasters. So it's prohibitive. It's a problem. And instead of solving the problem, the city, thereby the government of Illinois, I should say, has been very difficult. Now, Chicago Bears want to move quickly. They want to get a new stadium. They want to have it ready by 2028. They want enough seats that they can lure a Super Bowl. They want all of the smoke that goes along with having a big time stadium. And the governor said no. So what we're looking at right now is Chicago Bears going to pull a George and Wheezy, and they're going to move on up to Arlington Heights. It looks like at this point. Now, this is a stop and start sort of situation. If you guys remember, Arlington Heights was the designated and chosen location going back as far as 2 years ago. Before in April, we got the announcement that the Bears had come up with a design for the waterfront that would increase the level of green on the waterfront and improve everything. But of course, what was the first thing that happened? The Friends of the Park started complaining that they don't want to do it. They don't like it. So it looks like, and by the way, this was not the impetus, but then it came down to the government looking at it, and the Bears tried to make a push to get this onto the docket for this past legislative session. Did not happen. So the best they can hope for is that in the fall it would go on the legislative agenda. But the J.B. Pritzker and his department said this is an absolute non-starter, and there is no thirst and no appetite right now from the Illinois state government to approve any type of funding for a new Chicago Bears stadium. So we're going to look at some of the problems here. Then we're going to move on to Chicago Bears news, and then we'll wrap this up in a pretty little bow if we can, and move on. So first up, Arlington Heights, and it's pretty simple here. The Bears bought this entire little region here, and let's go through it. The Chicago Bears, and this, by the way, is an old article. Because I needed to go back because I needed some numbers and stuff like that. A report from Mark Carman of Chicago CHGO has thrown some speculations into the Bears' future. Now, the Bears recently said many words about their desire to build a stadium on the lakefront, but the fact remains they own a massive plot of land in Arlington Heights. And if the dollars line up right, then the suburbs will be in play. So, and here's the thing, part of me, and this is this guy's article, he says that, part of me wants to write this off as a negotiation tactic and word salad, but another part of me knows that there is a possibility that Arlington Heights and the school district that have held up negotiations could still play ball. Maybe this has all been for show, as the Bears and Arlington Heights have played nice in the shadows at this point. Here is what we know. The Bears set their sights on building a new stadium. The Chicago Park District begins to plan for life on the lakefront without the Bears. They purchased a large plot of land in Arlington Heights and hired an architect. Loose plans were rendered for a large-scale development in Arlington Heights and presented to the public. The Bears requested that Arlington Heights and its school district reduce the property tax bill on the land, but the school district did not budge. Other local municipalities made pitches to the Bears regarding a potential stadium. The Bears ideally want to stay in downtown Chicago, but they want to be on the lakefront in Chicago. They presented a loose structure on funding and a plan for a new stadium on the lakefront in an even more public manner. And we saw the layout, we saw the designs. Meanwhile, they continue to work towards a property tax resolution with Arlington Heights and the school districts. Well, so what you saw was a combination of those things that we already addressed, in that J.B. Pritzker openly says we have no thirst, we have no idea what we want to do here. We're not here to help the Chicago Bears build a new stadium because we don't think that it's going to be a revenue producer, or whatever the case may be, or it's not going to be good for the downtown area or for the taxpayer, as it were. Arlington Heights, on the other hand, now sees the Bears openly plotting for a move in downtown Chicago, and they see that their big stalemate that may have been a bargaining chip is falling apart. So what then happens? Well, then the Arlington Heights location starts to come back into the equation after the governor says, nah, we're not interested. And Arlington Heights is now discussing reducing the tax bill, and that they've made some progress in that regard. However, if it's a prohibitive tax, then things will stay the way that they are. But the Bears are on the clock, wanting to move very quickly. Ultimately, we're left with the same place we started, whether the Bears are going to play there or not. So that's the question. Now let's get into some of the information. Okay. Now, if you remember, Lori Lightfoot said openly that the Bears need to win games before they would entertain a stadium. She doesn't control that to begin with, but that did not sit very well with Kevin Warren. Then, of course, she was voted out. Now we have a new mayor, and he's way more receptive to what's going on. As a historic football team with deep roots in the city, the uncertainty around the Bears' future begs a few questions. What are the economic ramifications of the Bears moving away? Here is where it gets interesting. In analyzing the economic impact of the Bears' relocation, it's important to understand that the franchise does not want to leave Soldier Field, but Soldier Field is extremely limited as a modern NFL stadium. It's the oldest stadium in the NFL and the smallest, with only 61,500 seats, where Lambeau has 81,400. And without a roof, it makes for a brutal winter viewing experience for a fan and eliminates the stadium as a potential host for major sporting events such as the Super Bowl or the Final Four. The Bears do not own Soldier Field. The team is a tenant of the Chicago Park District and operated the stadium. This gives the franchise limited revenue opportunities and decision-making capacity over stadium renovations, overall upkeep, and strategic initiatives. The Bears seek freedom operationally, financially, and creatively, and have found that opportunity in Arlington Heights. That is a big move right there. Now, from the city's perspective, there are three financial considerations to the Bears: lease payments, bond payments, and the effect on the local economy. So the Bears are currently paying $6.48 million per year for Soldier Field. The longer the team stays, the lower that financial penalty becomes once the franchise decides to leave. According to the same Tribune analysis, if the Bears depart Soldier Field in 2026, they will pay their annual lease payment plus a financial penalty of $84 million to the city. While $84 million may seem substantial, the Bears' revenue was $520 million, a figure that should increase by the time 2026 rolls around. This will not be a big deal. Additionally, the cost of a new campus in Arlington Heights is estimated to be over $5 billion, so an $84 million penalty is negligible for the Bears to consider the move. Nonetheless, an early Bears exit from Soldier Field means Chicago loses its rent revenue from the team, but gains a hefty fee from the team breaking their lease early. In 2003, Soldier Field was renovated for $690 million, around $430 million, which was financed through bonds. A government entity responsible for issuing and renovating sports stadiums in Illinois, the ISFA, relies on the city's hotel tax revenue to cover the bond's annual debt payments. An important aspect of the original transaction was that Chicago City Hall agreed to provide funding for any remaining gap should the city hotel taxes fall short. This scenario has already occurred in 2011 and in 2021, and there is an $18.4 million gap forecasted for 2023. The trickiness of the bonds will become more apparent in 2033 when the full debt is set for repayment, but it doesn't appear that the Bears move has any direct effect on the ISFA's ability to cover its obligations. According to Professor Alan Sanderson, a sports economist for the University of Chicago, the number of Bears fans that travel into the city for home games is fairly small, and these fans don't significantly contribute to the city's hotel tax revenue. Whether the Bears leave or stay, hotel tax may or may not be able to cover ISFA's debt obligation. Therefore, Chicago's responsibility as a financial gap filler is unaffected by the Bears' final decision. And then, to predict the dollar figure in losses for the local economy, there are two key factors to consider: employment and business activity. Employment at the stadium is largely comprised of part-time workers whose services are used 10 times a year for home games. Although eliminating these jobs with a Bears exodus seems like a sizable loss in neighborhood employment, Professor Sanderson insists that it's only a small fraction of FTE jobs. So it's not going to be a big loss in that regard for employment. But as for the loss of local economic activity, Sanderson notes that most fans who attend Bears games are Chicago locals who drive in from neighborhoods and don't stay overnight in the city. The amount of money they spend outside the stadium is trivial. They may buy a sweatshirt once during the season. They may have lunch 10 times a year, but that's basically it. This is actually a very important thing because this is exactly right. It doesn't have that much of an impact. So additionally, the high-earning players on the team generally don't live near the stadium and aren't investing in the local area. The teams and the players don't fuel local economic activity, so the team's departure shouldn't result in substantial economic loss or business loss. So what the Bears are thinking here is this. It's all about money. Currently, the franchise operates on a revenue-limited environment by renting Soldier Field. They're only negotiated upon revenue opportunities to the stadium are tickets, concessions, stadium signage, and the use of 4,250 parking spots. In contrast, 5 of the top 11 revenue-generating NFL franchises own their stadiums, and these franchises average revenue total of $580 million annually compared to the Bears' $520, meaning the franchise is likely missing out on an estimated $60 to $70 million by not owning their stadium, a loss of approximately $600 to $700 million over a 10-year period. Owning a new stadium would enable the Bears franchise to gain revenue from various streams: naming rights to the stadium, renting out various buildings around the stadium, hosting non-football related events like concerts, although the Lightfoot administration were going to offer a stadium with a dome and 25,000 more seats. Those proposals are not financially equivalent to what they can get in Arlington Heights. So it is looking more and more like what's going to happen very, very soon is you're going to see something signed. You're going to see some contract signings, and you're going to see the Chicago Bears moving out of Chicago into Arlington Heights. However, I mean, it's still near, so it's going to be the Chicago Bears. Just going to be, if you live on the south side, it's just going to be a longer drive. As a matter of fact, I think on the map, I don't know for sure if I got it. Where is it? I did have a map up where, you know what? Bleeves, you idiot. If there happens to be anybody who doesn't know, then it's a little bit north of Wrigley Field, basically. So, let's pop this up on the Wayback Machine. Arlington Heights, located right here, Wrigley Field right here, and downtown Chicago is right here. Bears right there. So you'd be traveling a little bit more, but it's not going to be that much. And you might even be able to free up a little bit of traffic because it is notoriously bad at traffic down here in this range. So, perhaps this is, I don't want to say this is going to be for the best. What would be for the best would be for Chicago to stay right where they are, for none of this stuff to even matter that much. But here we are. So I'd be looking for some news coming out over the next few months where, we get some clarity over what's going on. But looks like at this point, the Bears are starting to seal a deal, and we'll see them gone. Now, in the meantime, we are talking about Cole Kmet and the tight ends. And how are they going to get receptions? How are they going to show their wares, if you will, in this coming year? Cole Kmet is coming off a career year, but the only remaining offensive starter for the team's last playoff game could be challenged to hit big numbers again this year. Cole Kmet is the only Bears player on offense or defense to have started or even appeared in a playoff game with the Chicago Bears. Barring injury, he'll also be the only one who have chased passes from the last 3 first-round quarterbacks they drafted once he runs a route in a game with Caleb Williams. So he's going to have caught passes from Mitchell Trubisky, Justin Fields, and Caleb Williams. Well, yeah, Cole Kmet says this. Well, yeah, I've played with a bunch of different quarterbacks at this point, so that's nothing new, really just being patient with it, kind of understanding that there's a learning process, and especially as a rookie, there's a lot you got to learn coming into the league because Kmet has been through it before with a rookie quarterback. He knows what to expect. So I feel like he's done a great job so far with the OTAs, says Kmet, of Caleb Williams. You can see those steps he's taking week to week, but yeah, there's definitely an element of patience. There has to be because just because of where we're at and where he's at. That's totally understandable. What's really different and maybe more difficult for Kmet is playing in this Shane Waldron offense with so many different potential elite targets. The Bears have had 3 wide receivers, a running back, and another tight end capable of providing a quarterback with this level of target across the board. Kmet's streak of consecutive seasons with at least 50 receptions could be in jeopardy from all of this balance, let alone from the rookie quarterback. The Bears tight ends, this is a list of what the Chicago Bears now have. Shane Waldron's offense is going to run around Caleb Williams, DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze. We're 5 people deep before we even get to Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett. So this is a very interesting and probably difficult time. Gerald Everett has averaged over 50 receptions. Cole Kmet, over 50 receptions. DJ Moore, 90 receptions. Keenan Allen, 100 receptions. Rome Odunze, we don't know yet what Rome Odunze is going to do, but I mean, if he is as good as advertised, that's 100 receptions there. How are we going to have 500 completions just to make sure that everybody gets the ball? Plus, what about Tyler Scott? Does Tyler Scott get an opportunity? What about DeAndre Swift? Does he catch 40 or 50? I mean, this is a serious problem that some of these guys are going to have. And by the way, it could lead to some strife. Remember, we already had DJ Moore come out once and say, he's concerned about how the passes are going to be distributed. So it's a weird thing to say, but he's worried about himself and that he feels that he's best for the team, if you will. The tight ends don't pile up bigger numbers with the Seahawks, even when Bagent was offensive coordinator. In the first year, Gerald Everett had 48 catches, Will Dissly had 26, and Colby Parkinson had 8. So now you're talking about 80 receptions on a team that has 2 50-catch guys. In the second year, Noah Fant had 50 catches, Dissly had 34, and Parkinson had 25. So what you're seeing there is a little bit of an increase to 120. In the final year, Noah Fant only had 32, Parkinson had 25, and Dissly had 17. So you see it come way, way back down. Now, it could be that Shane Waldron is just adapting his offense around what his team is going to what his team is good at. So, it could be fair to say that when you have a DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and Jackson Smith and Ajigba, that's tough to go after them instead of tight ends. I mean, if they're getting open, you're making plays, then fine. But now there's an interesting sort of thing playing out here. How do you get the ball, and how does everybody get distributed the ball? So, that's the question right now. So the question right now is the Sports Illustrated. Sports Illustrated is giving a projection here of Cole Kmet having 48 receptions, 532 yards, 5 touchdowns, 11 yards a catch, and a 75% catch average. So they're not looking for a continuation of what he did in 2023. 2023, 73 receptions on 90 targets, 720 yards, 6 touchdowns, 10 yards per catch, and then an 81% catch rate. So, look, this is going to be very interesting how this plays out, and I hope that these tight ends have some opportunity here. But let's talk about 3 players shifting on who aren't in the offseason spotlight but could play pivotal roles. And we're going to go through them one by one, and we'll do this quickly as possible. TJ Edwards, there's no doubt that Sweat should be considered the Bears defensive MVP. And guys, I do want to say this. When it comes down to it, I like Jack Sanborn, but he's a rookie. He's going to get better, but and by the way, if I can just say this, one of the things that I really liked about Jack Sanborn, he had a nose for the ball. He knew where that ball was going to be. He was doing a great job, very instinctive, should get a lot better in this defense. Tremaine Edmonds, I don't think he started off the season great, then kind of came on towards the end of the season. Again, as Montez Sweat came on, so did the rest of the team. But TJ Edwards, I think, was kind of a stalwart for this team last year, and it didn't matter. He seemed to be in lockstep with this team and Matt Eberflus from day one. So Edwards plays the important weak side linebacker position for Matt Eberflus' scheme, which requires him to fly to the ball to rack up tackles and create takeaways. And he had 155 tackles last season, which was good for 7th most in the NFL. He also had 3 interceptions, recovered 2 fumbles, and forced another one. Not only was he a tackle machine, he was a turnover machine. It won't show up in the stat sheet, but Tremaine Edmonds also wouldn't have had his pick 6 if not for the enormous hit that Edwards laid on Cedric Tillman. So, when you break this down, TJ Edwards is a guy who's going to cause a big season. If Edwards simply picks up where he left off last year, he's going to be huge in this team's defense. If he takes a step forward as he gets more comfortable in the defense, he could start earning national attention as one of the best linebackers. Next up is my favorite running back, Roschon Johnson. DeAndre Swift should be the focal point of the Bears offense. They're paying him $8 million a year for 3 years, and he's a multi-talented rusher who can also help out in the passing game, just like Roschon Johnson, who is coming off a rookie season. The days of the bell cow back are all but done in the NFL. However, unless a team has a guy like Derrick Henry, Christian McCaffrey, or Saquon Barkley, most coaches are opting right now for running back by committee. The Bears might not split carries evenly between Swift and their RB2, but their RB2 probably will receive significant snaps, and that's where Johnson comes into the picture. Johnson's shown flashes of the physical power that drew the Bears to him in the draft, but he never hit 40 yards in a game and averaged just over 5 carries per game. The team will likely want to see more of him in 2024 since Khalil Herbert contract expires at the end of the season. If Johnson looks good as the Thunder to Swift's Lightning, polls could feel good about moving forward with that duo and letting Herbert walk in free agency. Again, guys, I did say that it is important for me to, I think you can move on from Khalil Herbert. And I think no matter when we move on from Khalil Herbert, we're going to be fine. But at this point, when he's $1 million and, really not taking a salary cap, you're not really getting a benefit of the salary cap, only in an emergency situation or when you can get some kind of good volume of trade for him. You can get a player that feeds a real good position of need. Otherwise, Khalil Herbert's just going to be on the roster. And by the way, Khalil Herbert looked really good in OTAs and or in minicamp. So I like what I saw out of Khalil Herbert coming into it, but I also like Roschon Johnson, DeAndre Swift. So, it's going to be a lot of competition at the running back position, and that's great. That's great for this team. Either way, it seems like Johnson is in line for a lot more action this year. I think they're going to want to see what they've got in him, and they're going to see how well he matches up and plays. Also up, Zach Pickens. Most of the offseason talk has been about Gervon Dexter, but the team needs him to generate a lot of pressure. In a perfect world, though, the Bears want to deploy 2 waves of linemen in a relentless passing attack. That would allow the team to both present different looks for opposing offenses and keep the pass rushers as fresh as possible through the fourth quarter. In order to do that, the Bears are going to need Pickens to develop just as much as they need Dexter. Pickens played just 25% of the team's snaps last season, working a lot as Billings backup at nose tackle. This year, he has the opportunity to show off some of his versatility with 3 technique reps, 2. Defensive tackle remains one of the thinnest, if not the thinnest position on the team. Polls only added Byron Cowart and a handful of undrafted free agents. By the way, Keith Randolph, if this guy comes in and he's the deal that he looks like, he looks like early on or that he was at Illinois, this might end up being a really good thing. And we're going to get a guy who is potentially, even if he's a low impact player, he's still an impact player. And if the guy bulks up right, there's a lot of ifs here on Keith Randolph, but otherwise, I think that we do have a little bit of rotation on the defensive tackle position. And there's going to have to be a lot of faith, by the way, in this team as we do it. It's tough for undrafted free agents to make a big impact in their rookie season. And Coward didn't play a game last season as he bounced between the Chiefs, Texans, and Dolphins. So Pickens would appear to be the one that has the best shot of taking over as the main guy coming off of the bench at defensive tackle. So hopefully he looks the part. And look, I think this guy's fired up. Gervon Dexter seems to be fired up. I think these guys really want to prove themselves to the Chicago Bears and to the fan base. So that closes that out. And let's close this out with one. This is public enemy number one right now. Titans defensive tackle Jeffrey Simmons says that he cannot wait to trash talk Bears quarterback Caleb Williams in week one. So he is, by the way, one of the trash talkers, the preeminent trash talkers in the league. As one of the ascendant stars in the NFL, Jeffrey Simmons has earned the right to jaw his opponents, even if the occasionally requires officials to get involved. I've had some refs come to me with like, you have to calm down. Sometimes the ref probably heard me really talking smack. He's like 9-8, calm down. It's been like that a couple of times. Naturally, the two-time Pro Bowl admission prompted Rich Eisen and his crew to dig deeper on the subject. And then week one and Caleb Williams came into focus. And Williams has already proven to be a lightning rod. He said he's going to take aim at one of Williams' fashion choices. He said, painted nails. We can't wait to say that to him. Most definitely. Oh, it's going to be one of those games. I mean, he's probably going to get smack talked by his teammates right now, but especially in a game like this. My first game, of course, I missed the last end of the season. It's going to be my first game of the season. They've got us coming to Chicago. All the hype's going to be on them. I think when special, even primetime games, everybody just counts Tennessee out, which we all know. A game like Chicago, I'm sure they're thinking about, we about to get beat bad. That also makes me want to talk more smack and boost me up a little more, get into a different mode as well. I'll be in a different mode on that game. I get it. You've got a first-round pick like Caleb Williams, which is a great player. Watching a couple games when he was at USC, he's a hell of a player, but this is a different league, and I'm excited to play him in his first game. And my goal and my mindset is I really don't care about what's going on and who he is. If it could be Tom Brady's first game of the season, I want to go out there and set the tone, not just for him, but for who we are trying to be as a defense and as a team in Tennessee. But like you said, it's one of them games where it's the NFL's, it's the first NFL game. Hopefully, I'm not out to hurt anybody, but our goal is to get him. And like you said, welcome him to the NFL the right way. So shout out to this guy. Fuck you, Jeffrey Simmons. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. And I mean that because we're probably about the same size. So I ain't scared, homie. Anyway, Caleb Williams is going to be just fine. Might have it's going to be interesting. I'm certainly fascinated and excited to see how this works out. And by the way, I did do some analysis, and I think something that we had, which was a problem last season, which I don't think is going to end up being a problem again this season. Last season, the team was not prepared. The team was not ready for the season to start, and I don't think that becomes a thing again. And I don't think that becomes a thing is because I don't think that people have to learn the same way that they had to learn last season. I think this team is more developed, more seasoned, and more savvy and ready to get into the nitty-gritty of the daily get ready for the next game grind. Last year, Jalen Johnson famously said, we didn't walk through some of the situational plays that we really probably should have. And it was probably an accommodation of time with a limited amount of training camp to go through and a limited amount of practice in the NFL. You can only do so much. So if you have to go over basics and you have to get people to understand the basics and the principles of playing football, as opposed to the basics and the principles of how you want to scheme, then it does create an obstacle. Well, hopefully this season that obstacle has been overcome, and what we're about to see is a real leap up and a step forward for the Chicago Bears, that they will be ready, firing on all cylinders coming out. They're going to be led by a guy in Caleb Williams, who I think is a leader on teams. And by the way, the thing with Jeffrey Simmons, like painting the nails and stuff like that, Caleb Williams doesn't care about that. His mother was a nail tech. That's it. He honors his mother by painting his nails. He doesn't do it because it looks pretty or cute or anything like that. He does it for his family. So coming in and razzing him about that, he's not going to care. He's going to paint his nails navy blue and orange. He's going to have Chicago Bears all over them. He's not going to care one way or another. And by the way, that actually gives Caleb a little bit of a head start against these people. They're going to be picking on him because he's a rookie in the NFL. He's the number 1 overall pick. Everybody's coming for Caleb. Caleb, by the way, I don't think he cares. I think Caleb is a kid of destiny. I don't know if he lives up to the expectation. I don't know if he's ever the great player that he thinks he is, but he's certainly going to be a good player. And I think a good player in the NFL is going to be enough for the Chicago Bears to make the playoffs, and we're going to have a really good season. I think that is enough at this point. If he shows out and he shows that he is ready for that prime time that he could be ready for, if that changes and he is, then this is going to be a season for the ages. But no matter what, Caleb Williams, Cole Kmet, DJ Moore, DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen, we have a team of stars that are ready to shine. So thank you so much for tuning in. I hope these guys really put it all together. And Jeffrey Simmons, you're going down, baby. Week 1, you're going to be week WEAK 1. So, bear down, Chicago Bears. Fuck Green Bay. Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you hit the like button on your way out, and we will talk to you again very, very soon. Be back tomorrow.